Old Hollywood could control the headlines, but the autopsy report was much harder to manage. Ramon Navarro's autopsy found no evidence of the infamous Art Deco object supposedly forced into his mouth. Howard Hughes' body weighed barely 90 pounds when the FBI had to confirm his identity using fingerprints. Errol Flynn's pathologist removed tissue from his body as a teaching specimen until the coroner ordered it put back. 1. Marilyn Monroe. When Marilyn Monroe's body was examined on August 5, 1962, the lethal drugs in her system were not the strangest finding. Deputy Coroner Thomas Noguchi found no major trauma and no recent injection marks. Music toxicology showed 4.5 mg% of pentobarbital or Nembutal in her blood along with 8 mg% of chloral hydrate. Her liver contained even more pentobarbital. Together, the two drugs could easily suppress breathing. But Monroe's stomach contained only about 20 cubic centimeters of brown fluid. There were no visible capsule fragments, music, and no drug crystals under polarized light. That absence later fueled theories that the drugs had entered her body another way. Noguchi disagreed. He said an empty stomach was not unusual after a barbiturate overdose, while congestion of the stomach lining supported oral ingestion. The official cause was acute barbiturate poisoning. The manner was ruled probable suicide. 2. Bobby Driscoll. The autopsy of Bobby Driscoll was shocking for two reasons. First, nobody knew it was Bobby Driscoll. Two boys found an unidentified man inside an abandoned East Village tenement on March 30, 1968. He carried no identification, and when neighborhood photographs produced no leads, the medical examiner handled him as a John Doe. The autopsy found advanced atherosclerosis severe enough to cause heart failure. He was only 31. Long-term narcotic use was considered the likely reason his arteries had hardened so prematurely. There was no violent injury. With nobody claiming the body, New York buried him in an unmarked communal grave on Hart Island. More than a year later, Driscoll's mother began searching for her missing son. Police finally compared his fingerprints with the John Doe file. They matched. The autopsy had explained his death long before anyone realized they had examined a former Disney star. 3. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge's postmortem produced something unusually disturbing: two different medical explanations for the same death. She was found unresponsive in her West Hollywood apartment on September 8, 1965. Los Angeles County pathologists focused on a small fracture in her right foot, suffered 5 days earlier. Under the microscope, they found fat and bone marrow particles blocking blood vessels in her lungs and brain. Their conclusion was a rare fat embolism caused by the broken metatarsal. Then toxicology complicated everything. A separate Los Angeles Pathology Institute detected a dangerous concentration of imipramine, the antidepressant sold, as tofranil, and classified her death as accidental acute drug intoxication. The two findings never fit together cleanly. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office kept the fat embolism diagnosis, leaving two medical authorities with two different explanations for how Dorothy Dandridge died. 4. Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes looked so different when he died that fingerprints had to be sent to the FBI to confirm his identity. He died aboard an emergency flight from Acapulco to Houston on April 5, 1976. The 100-minute autopsy revealed extraordinary physical deterioration. Hughes had once stood 6 feet 4. His body now measured roughly 2 and shorter and weighed only about 90 pounds. He was severely dehydrated and malnourished. His kidneys were badly damaged. Pressure sores covered parts of his body, and X-rays revealed perhaps the most disturbing detail of all. 5 broken hypodermic needles were still embedded in his arms, remnants of years of injected codeine. Doctors also found osteoporosis, spinal damage, and badly eroded teeth. Chronic kidney failure became the official cause of death. 2 years later, however, a reportedly suppressed toxicology result revealed a potentially lethal concentration of codeine. The death certificate was never changed. 5. William Holden. William Holden's autopsy reconstructed a death that had happened with nobody around to help him. His body was found on his bedroom floor on November 16, 1981, roughly 4 days after he had died. Holden had suffered a serious head injury after apparently slipping on a rug and striking a bedside table. Music, he didn't die instantly. Scene evidence suggested he remained conscious for at least 30 minutes. There was no heart attack. Toxicology explained why the accident probably happened. Holden's blood alcohol level was 0.22% and assistant coroner described him as very intoxicated. Thomas Noguchi concluded that alcohol likely caused the fall and also reduced Holden's ability to respond properly to an injury that may initially have been survivable. His death was certified as accidental blood loss caused by the head injury with acute alcohol intoxication as a major contributing factor. 6. Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood's original autopsy appeared to support an accidental drowning. Decades later, the same injuries became part of the reason her death certificate was changed. Wood's body was recovered near Catalina Island on November 29, 1981. Thomas Noguchi found drowning and hypothermia along with a blood alcohol level of 0.14% and traces of pain and motion sickness medication. But there were also injuries. Bruises appeared on both arms along with a scratch on her neck and abrasions on her face. Noguchi initially believed some could have occurred while Wood struggled with the yacht's dinghy. Later review focused on a 4-inch bruise on her right forearm, fresh bruises on her left thigh, and scratches behind her legs. The chief medical examiner believed several injuries may have occurred before she entered the water. They did not prove an assault, but in 2012, her death certificate was amended to drowning and other undetermined factors, and the manner of death became undetermined. 7. Lupe Velez. One of Hollywood's most gruesome celebrity death stories falls apart almost completely when compared with Lupe Velez's autopsy. On December 13, 1944, Velez left a suicide note and swallowed a large quantity of seconal. Her secretary found her the next morning. The post-mortem conclusion was straightforward: acute barbiturate poisoning caused by ingested seconal. No drowning, no fatal fall, no bathroom injury. That matters because Hollywood Babylon later claimed Velez became sick, stumbled into the bathroom, fell into a toilet, and drowned. The medical records showed nothing of the sort. Contemporary reports placed her body on or beside the bed, and there was no evidence that vomiting caused a second fatal accident. The amount of fast-acting seconal in her system would have produced unconsciousness without the elaborate bathroom sequence, later attached to her death. The official cause remained barbiturate poisoning. 8. Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee's autopsy revealed that the immediate problem was inside his skull. After complaining of a headache on July 20, 1973, Lee took the painkiller Equagesic and never regained consciousness. There was no major external injury, blocked blood vessel, ruptured vessel, or tongue bite to explain the sudden collapse. Instead, doctors found severe cerebral edema. Lee's brain weighed 1,575 g, roughly 12% heavier than expected. Cannabis was detected in his stomach, but expert pathologists told the inquest that blaming cannabis would be medically irresponsible. Equagesic contained aspirin, and the sedative meprobamate. The official explanation became a rare hypersensitivity reaction to one of those ingredients producing fatal brain swelling. A 9-day inquiry returned a verdict of death by misadventure. In 2022, kidney specialists proposed another possibility: hyponatremia caused by an inability to eliminate excess water. But that remains a hypothesis. The official verdict still centers on Equagesic. 9. Marie Prévost. Marie Prévost's autopsy proved that the most famous story about her death was largely invented. Neighbors discovered something was wrong after hearing her dachshund barking continuously. Prévost had been dead inside her Los Angeles apartment for roughly 2 days. Empty liquor bottles surrounded the scene. The post-mortem attributed her death to acute alcoholism combined with severe malnutrition. There was no poison, violent injury, or intruder. Her dog, Maxie, had left several small post-mortem bites on Prévost's legs, apparently while trying to get a response from her. And that was essentially it. Years later, Kenneth Anger transformed those minor marks into a much more grotesque story in Hollywood Babylon, claiming that the starving dog had begun feeding on its owner. The myth became so popular that it even inspired Nick Lowe's 1978 song Marie Prévost. But the actual autopsy described only minor postmortem bites that had nothing to do with her death. 10. Judy Garland. Judy Garland's autopsy contradicted one of the most obvious assumptions about her death. She was found in the bathroom of her London home on June 22, 1969. Pathologist Derek Pocock discovered an extremely high level of quinylbarbital, or seconal, in her blood, about the equivalent of 10 1½ grain tablets. But her stomach contained virtually no tablet residue and showed no major irritation. That suggested Garland had not swallowed one huge handful at once. Instead, the pathologist believed she had taken repeated smaller doses over several hours. The examination also revealed something unexpected. There was no cirrhosis of the liver, despite years of public assumptions that alcoholism had destroyed it. A half-used prescription bottle containing 25 tablets was near the bed, while another bottle of 100 remained unopened. The coroner found no evidence of suicide. Her death was officially described as barbiturate poisoning caused by incautious self-overdosage. 11. Thelma Todd. Thelma Todd's autopsy answered how she died. It couldn't answer why. Todd was found inside her car in a Pacific Palisades garage on December 16, 1935. Her blood contained roughly 75 to 80% carbon monoxide saturation, easily enough to cause unconsciousness and death. Toxicology also showed an alcohol level of about 0.13%. Blood around her nose and lip raised suspicion, but the initial examination found no significant bruising or clear evidence of a struggle. The carbon monoxide proved Todd had inhaled a massive amount of exhaust while still alive. But major questions remained. Why was the engine running? Why was the garage door several inches open? Investigators considered suicide, murder, and an accidental death involving the car heater. Neither the coroner's inquest nor a grand jury found enough evidence for homicide. The final ruling was accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. 12. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn was only 50 when his autopsy revealed a body carrying years of serious internal damage. He collapsed in Vancouver on October 14, 1959 after receiving Demerol for back and leg pain. The injection did not kill him. Doctors found a myocardial infarction caused by coronary thrombosis and advanced atherosclerosis. They also documented fatty degeneration of the liver, partial portal cirrhosis, and diverticulosis of the colon. Then came one of the strangest details associated with the examination. According to Vancouver coroner Glenn MacDonald's later account, pathologist Tom Harmon removed tissue affected by severe genital warts because he wanted to preserve it as a teaching specimen. MacDonald immediately ordered that it be returned. He later wrote that the tissue was restored before Flynn's body left the morgue. A second examination in Los Angeles agreed with Vancouver's major medical findings. The official cause remained myocardial infarction from coronary disease with liver damage contributing. 13. George Reeves. George Reeves died from a single gunshot wound to the head on June 16, 1959. The autopsy strongly supported suicide, but it also documented details that kept suspicions alive. Los Angeles County Coroner Theodore Curfey determined that the wound was a close-contact gunshot. That finding strongly favored self-infliction. But Reeves's family requested another examination. The second autopsy recorded unexplained bruises on his head and body. The injuries were real, but pathologists could not establish that they came from an assault or had anything to do with the shooting. After reviewing the findings, family attorney Jerry Giesler admitted he had found no medical evidence contradicting suicide. He withdrew his request for further action. The original suicide ruling remained unchanged. 14. Gene Eagles. Gene Eagles's post-mortem didn't produce one cause of death. It produced three. After suffering convulsions, Eagles died at New York's Park Avenue Hospital on October 1, 1929. Deputy Chief Medical Examiner Thomas Gonzalez initially announced alcoholic psychosis, saying Eagles had experienced hallucinations for days. Then toxicologist Alexander Gettler examined her organs and found too little alcohol to explain the death. Instead, he detected an overdose of chloral hydrate, a powerful sedative used for sleep. Chief Medical Examiner Charles Norris accepted that explanation. 8 months later, Gonzalez, Music, changed the conclusion again. Now he said heroin had killed her. Toxicology had detected alcohol, chloral hydrate, and heroin, but medical officials disagreed over which substance was decisive. Music, the final published revision named heroin, replacing both the original alcoholic psychosis diagnosis and the later chloral hydrate ruling. 15. Jane Mansfield. Jane Mansfield's crash photographs created one of Hollywood's most persistent death myths. People claimed she had been completely decapitated. Music, the autopsy showed otherwise. Mansfield died when her car slammed into the rear of a tractor-trailer near New Orleans on June 29, 1967. The coroner said her head was still attached to her neck. Her undertaker later confirmed the same thing. The death certificate documented catastrophic cranial injuries, but not complete decapitation. That distinction became blurred as reports of the crash spread. A pale object visible in seen photographs also helped the story survive for decades. But medically, Mansfield died from massive head trauma. Complete beheading was never listed as her cause of death. 16. Olive Thomas. Olive Thomas survived, Music, for 5 days after swallowing mercury bichloride. Her autopsy explained why the poison killed her so slowly. Thomas became violently ill after drinking from a bottle in Paris hotel bathroom in September 1920. The chemical was a topical medication belonging to her husband, Jack, Music, Pickford. The Paris autopsy found acute nephritis caused by absorbed mercury bichloride. The corrosive chemical had damaged her digestive tract, entered the bloodstream, and gradually destroyed kidney function. The findings also contradicted newspaper rumors involving cocaine, syphilis, or some hidden physical injury. Police still investigated whether Thomas had swallowed the liquid intentionally or had been poisoned. Pickford said the French label confused his exhausted and intoxicated wife, who mistook the bottle for medicine or drinking water. The doctor who performed the autopsy accepted accidental ingestion. The official ruling was mercury bichloride poisoning causing acute nephritis. 17. Music, Alan Ladd. Alan Ladd's autopsy found no single lethal poison. Instead, 4 substances became deadly together. Ladd was discovered dead in bed at his, Music, Palm Springs home on January 29, 1964. Laboratory testing found alcohol, a barbiturate, and 2 tranquilizers in his system. None, Music, was present at a concentration considered fatal on its own. Together, however, all 4 suppressed the central nervous system and intensified one another's effects until normal breathing and brain function failed. The autopsy also recorded cerebral edema, dangerous swelling of the brain. Music, Riverside County Coroner James Byrd described alcohol as the major factor, but emphasized the synergistic effects, Music, of the entire chemical mixture. The dosages did not show that Ladd had deliberately swallowed one massive lethal amount. He was also known to combine medication with alcohol to help him sleep. The death was ruled accidental, not suicide. 18. Jean Seberg. Jean Seberg's toxicology created a disturbing practical question. Could she even have put herself inside the car where she was found? Seberg disappeared in Paris on August 30, 1979. 9 days later, police discovered her body wrapped in a blanket in the rear of her Renault. Barbiturates and, Music, a farewell note were nearby. The autopsy attributed death to a massive combination of barbiturates and alcohol. French reports placed her alcohol concentration at around 8 g per liter, so extreme that investigators believed she would have been comatose and physically incapable of driving or positioning herself inside the vehicle. No alcohol container was found in the car. The toxicology established an overdose, but not exactly what happened afterward. Police considered the death a probable suicide. In 1980, however, prosecutors opened a case against persons unknown for failing to assist someone in danger, reflecting suspicion that Seberg may not have reached the Renault alone. 19. Dorothy Kilgallen. When Dorothy Kilgallen was found dead in her Manhattan townhouse on November 8, 1965, early reports suggested a heart attack. The autopsy told a different story. Music, New York's medical examiner found acute alcohol and barbiturate intoxication. There was no physical evidence of violence and, music, no clear evidence that Kilgallen had deliberately tried to kill herself. But the post-mortem couldn't establish exactly how the lethal combination happened. Had she intentionally taken too much? Accidentally repeated a dose? Mixed prescription medication with more alcohol than she realized? Assistant Medical Examiner James Luke recorded the cause as acute ethanol and barbiturate intoxication. Then he added two important words: circumstances undetermined. Later theories connected her death to her investigation of President Kennedy's assassination. Whatever one thinks of those claims, the autopsy itself never established that connection. Officially, the matter remained unresolved. 20. Ramon Novarro. Ramon Novarro's autopsy documented a brutal murder. It also destroyed one of Hollywood's most grotesque legends. Novarro was found dead inside his Laurel Canyon home on October 31, 1968, after being beaten and robbed by two brothers. His blood alcohol level was 0.23% and most of his injuries were concentrated around his face. The official cause of death was complications from multiple traumatic injuries. Then Hollywood Babylon added a much more lurid story. The killers had supposedly used an Art Deco sexual object, allegedly given to Novarro by Rudolph Valentino, during the attack. There is no such object in the autopsy, police inventory, or trial record. People directly involved in the case also denied that it existed. The brothers stole roughly $20. The real autopsy was horrifying enough without the invention. Old Hollywood could control the headlines, but the autopsy report was much harder to manage. Ramon Novarro's autopsy found no evidence of the infamous Art Deco object supposedly forced into his mouth. Howard Hughes' body weighed barely 90 pounds when the FBI had to confirm his identity using fingerprints. Errol Flynn's pathologist removed tissue from his body as a teaching specimen until the coroner ordered it put back. 1. Marilyn Monroe. When Marilyn Monroe's body was examined on August 5, 1962, the lethal drugs in her system were not the strangest finding. Deputy Coroner Thomas Noguchi found no major trauma and no recent injection